Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Divorce Happens. This is the podcast where we support you before, during, and after divorce with education, inspiration, a little bit of laughter, because as we know, divorce happens and then you start fresh. And we're here with one of our Fresh Starts experts, Brian Green. Brian, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you for having me. Again, my name's Brian Green. I've been a senior loan advisor for almost 10 years. This will be my ninth year. I have originated over 800 mortgage loans, so I've seen pretty much everything. I have helped quite a few divorcees uh, get through the time, get through the struggle of figuring out what to do with the marital home, and I'm really excited to be here.
Well, I'm so excited to have you here because when I was going through my divorce, I stayed in the marital residence and I had to refinance under my name only. And honestly, I had bought the house with my ex-husband, right, when we were married, and I had no idea what refinancing was, which essentially is like buying the house again, kind of, right?
A little bit.
And a little bit, yeah. And so when I was going through the first couple days, which we'll talk about, of the separation process and figuring out like who's going to stay where and what's, can I, and I own my own business and I was like, can I even afford to stay in the house? I was connected to a mortgage broker, like lender, person, like you are, refinance expert. And he became like my rock during the divorce process. And it was, I distinctly remember like talking to Rich, hi Rich, and saying like, can I afford my own house? And the minute he said yes, I was like, okay, this is possible. Like I can actually go through with this divorce. And that was such a beautiful moment. And he really was like my defender and we got through that together. And like, I think so many people are like, oh, you need a divorce lawyer or a divorce coach, but you really need, if you own a house with somebody, a mortgage expert who's going to help you through
Yes.
this. So let's get into it, Brian. When you are, let's say, going through the separation process and the topic of the home comes up and you need to refinance, what does that mean to refinance, first of all?
Yes, so a refinance is similar to when you purchase a home. Basically, it's just a restructuring of the mortgage. So some
Mhm.
people refinance to get a lower interest rate. Some people refinance to pull equity from the home. Some people refinance to add or remove someone from the mortgage. So there's many different reasons to refinance, but
Mhm.
best way to look at it is you're just restructuring the mortgage that you
Mm.
already have.
I love that. I love that view of it. Yeah. So in my case, it was to take somebody off the mortgage, but I actually got a better deal when I refinanced with the percentage rates. So it was really good for me. Um, so if somebody's listening to this and they're going through the divorce process, and this is something that they're going to have to be dealing with, what's the first thing we do? Right? We call you, Brian, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going through a divorce. I'm going to have to refinance my house." Take us through the steps here, Brian.
So the first thing you want to do, so if you find out that you're going to be the one keeping the home, I would first off recommend having a separate bank account. Start making the mortgage payments out of that bank account. The reason why is there's certain loan programs that become much simpler if you can show that payments have been coming out for at least 6 months. Now,
Mm,
this may not work for everyone. Sometimes this stuff comes out of nowhere, but if you can prepare that far ahead, it can make your life a lot easier. Now, it's not, and it's it's not going to be a problem if you can't, but that would be my first recommendation. Second is if you're still going through the proceedings, it can be a little bit messy because depending on the state you're in, especially, you'll need both parties to sign off on everything. And if a
yeah.
divorce is not a smooth and easy process, it might be simpler just to wait until you either have a separation agreement or a divorce decree from the judge, basically stating what needs to happen with the home.
Right.
Doesn't mean we can't prepare. You can still get things ready like your W-2s and your pay stubs,
Mhm.
that sort of thing. But especially in a divorce, it's best to have kind of the wrinkles ironed out because
Yeah.
if not, you don't know if the other person is going to sign off on everything. You don't want to have that communication. I mean, I can help as much as I can, but at the end of
Yeah.
the day, I can't
Right.
knock on anyone's door and make them sign anything.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about kind of that paperwork because there's so much paperwork in a divorce, right? So, what are some of the things that you should have ready, right? So, like you said, Brian, if maybe you can't go through with the refinancing at that exact moment because you need to wait for some other documents, what can anybody listening to this say? Well, okay, I'm going to get these papers prepared. What should they have prepared?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a great idea to get pre-qualified. And the beauty of it, we can do it without a hard credit check, so you're not going to get hit with an inquiry. We just look at either your tax returns or your pay stubs and your W-2s, gives us an idea of your income and then your assets. So once we can look at everything in a big picture, it makes it a lot easier for you to have a more confidence knowing that once
Yeah.
the divorce does get finalized, you're going to be able to qualify for this new loan and you can hit the ground running.
I have a question for you, Brian, and maybe you can't answer this, but have you seen people ask you about this before they even like go through the divorce process? So it's like, can you find out if you can refinance before you ask for the divorce?
You can. So it's very state dependent. So
Okay.
and it depends on how it's structured now. If you're the only
Right.
one on title and the only one on the loan, it makes it pretty
Right.
simple.
Yep.
But if you're in a state like California or a state like Utah, you still have to have your spouse sign off on it. So
Okay.
you can do everything, but they may have some questions as to, hey, what's going on here?
Well, like, yeah, can you get pre-qual can you like check to see if you're pre-qualified without checking with your spouse, or is that something you still
Yeah.
have to? Okay, so you can so somebody could say, "Hey Brian, I'm considering refinancing, but I haven't talked to my spouse about the divorce yet. Can I just see if I'm pre-qualified for a mortgage?" That they can do independently?
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting. That's good to know. So, Brian, if somebody's listening to this and they're a little confused still about like what your role is in this, right? Why are they coming to Fresh Starts Registry and finding you as an expert? What are you doing during this process to support people? What exactly is it that you do?
Yeah, that is a great question. It's funny. I have friends that don't even know what I do.
Yeah.
So,
In simple terms.
right, my job is really to be an advocate for you for one. I mean, I know it's a difficult time to begin with, and now we're talking about the marital home and most people's biggest investment they make. So my job is to a find the best loan program for you, the one that is going to give you the most benefits when
Okay.
it comes to the your specific situation and just guiding you through the process.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a big I I'm one thing I really try to do is to simplify a lot of the things when especially when you're talking about mortgage. It can feel like you're talking to like a doctor when they start using
Mhm.
terms that you don't really make sense, and I don't want it to be to where you have to be able to explain it to someone else. I want to talk in a just very base level. Start there. I want you to understand it, of course, but just kind of simplify things
Yep.
and then guide you through the process, start to finish, and make sure that you're getting the best loan program you can.
Absolutely. I mean, it's such a you are playing such an essential role, I think, in that like hype team of divorce, right? Like along with your divorce lawyer and all these other people, realtor and all the whole team, because there's so many moving pieces when it comes to all of the legalities behind all of this. So where do you practice, Brian? And when people are listening to this, if they want to get in touch with you or have questions, what states are you typically working in?
So currently, I have 9 states. So I have Pennsylvania, Missouri, Oregon, Washington, California, Colorado, Oregon, Washington, Colorado. I feel like I'm missing one or two in there. But
You have
the good
the
news,
point is you have so many,
yeah,
Brian, that you can't even keep track. Yeah.
and the good news is if there is someone that wants help in a state I'm not licensed in, I can either get temporary authority where I can uh, do up to 5 without actually getting licensed. But
Oh,
I
okay.
was many moons ago. I had 27 licenses, so
Wow.
I'm comfortable picking something up if it
Okay.
means helping somebody. it is about 2 hours of an online course. I can get it done. I
Okay.
don't mind.
So the way that you would help people is they would get in touch with you and then they would reach out and say, I'm going through a divorce and refinancing my house. And you would start the process with them.
Yeah, I think we would start just seeing what makes sense without worrying about a credit check, without worrying about the income, because there's some programs that you don't need either, which is pretty great.
Right.
So I think figuring out what the end goal is going to be, whether it's going to be to just simply take someone off or pull equity from the home to pay them off, just figuring out what is going on and starting there. So yeah, I would give me a call, an email, find me on the registry,
Yep.
and we can have a 10 or 15-minute conversation just to give you a little bit of clarity.
I love that. Yeah, because it's one of those things that you don't think about really until you're going through the divorce. So
Yeah.
definitely if somebody's listening to this and they're going to be, I would say even in the consideration stage or you're the very early part of a divorce, reach out to Brian, get in touch with him. He is obviously you've done so many mortgages. I'm sure you've seen a little bit of everything. So he can answer all your questions. And like you said, Brian, it's a different language and it can be very overwhelming. So Brian's a great person to help you simplify that process and guide you through that, which we love. Brian, if somebody's listening to this and they're going through a divorce, what would be some words of encouragement that you could leave them with?
I There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
I know, excuse me. Uh, it's not something that I've personally been through, but I've helped probably 20 different individuals get through this. And I know that the beginning is always stressful, but the end is typically the biggest sigh of relief
Mm,
because the home is usually the last piece of the puzzle. And if we can get that part done, it really starts your new life. So, and the process doesn't take as long as you think. We can a lot of times get this done in just a couple weeks. So, if yeah, I would just say there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and I would love to help you get there. Uh, that would be about it.
no, it's a good that's great advice. I love that advice. And I think it's important to hear that from an expert who's been helping people through that because it can feel so like you're stuck in the moment when it comes to a lot of this stuff. And so, yes, there absolutely is a light at the end of the tunnel. And you can find Brian at Fresh Starts Registry in the expert guide. And Brian, we're so happy you're part of the Fresh Starts community and helping people through all these big life transitions. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.